Hello everyone, Earl Henderson in Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play the entirety of this video without any interruptions, and then I'll go back and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on, and talk about things that I think that were done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go.
Hello, my name is Jeff Halleck, Undersheriff of the Orange County Sheriff's Department. This critical incident video is intended to provide you with information about a deputy-involved shooting involving the Orange County Sheriff's Department. A deputy-involved shooting demands the highest level of scrutiny and rightfully is a matter of public concern. In this critical incident video, we will provide a synopsis, including relevant video and audio, so you have a better understanding of what occurred during this incident. The investigation related to this incident is ongoing and could take up to 1 year to complete. With that in mind, our understanding of the incident may change as additional evidence is collected, analyzed, processed, and reviewed. Additionally, we withhold judgment and do not draw any conclusions about whether or not our deputies acted in a manner consistent with our policies and in accordance with the law until all facts are known and the investigations are complete. I'm Sergeant Dennis Breckner with the Orange County Sheriff's Department Public Affairs Division. I will provide you with a brief overview of the deputy-involved shooting that occurred in the city of Lake Forest, California. On Wednesday, June 24, 2020, at approximately 1 a.m., Orange County Sheriff's Dispatch received a 911 call from a cell phone. The woman caller told dispatchers that someone had broken a window to the front of her house and entered the residence. The woman stated she was hiding in a bathroom and her boyfriend was hiding in a closet. The line then disconnected. Dispatchers attempted multiple times to call back, but the caller did not answer the phone. First, you will hear the audio from the 911 call to dispatch, followed by the dispatcher's initial radio transmission to deputies.
911, what's your emergency?
Hi, someone just broke into my house.
What's your address?
In the month.
What's the street name?
Sunshine.
What is the street name?
Loumonte.
Spell it.
Loumonte.
What city are you in?
Lake Forest.
What makes you think someone broke into your home?
I heard it.
Okay, where did you hear it coming from?
I think from the window in the front.
What did you hear?
A loud crash.
Okay, did someone come in?
Yes.
Someone's inside your house?
Yes.
Where are they at now?
I'm not sure.
Is that a house or an apartment?
A house.
Okay, I have Loumonte in Lake Forest, correct?
Yes, correct.
Are you home alone?
No, my boyfriend's here with me.
Where's he at?
He's here.
Can you see him?
No, he's hiding.
He's hiding.
Yeah.
Where's he hiding?
We're hiding. He's hiding in the closet. I'm hiding in the bathroom.
Okay, is it a one-story house or a two-story house?
One story.
Okay, do you have a pool in your backyard?
461 Athena to Coliseum 60 for info. 461 Athena to Coliseum 60 for info prior to 1459. Loumonte, 891 Golf 5. The informant heard what sounded like a front window break and she believes someone is inside her residence.
461 464 464
Units responding to Loumonte. The informant is home with her boyfriend. The boyfriend is hiding in the closet, and the informant is hiding in the bathroom. It's a one-story residence. The line disconnected.
461
Deputies were dispatched to the residence and responded with lights and sirens. As protocol for a response to a residential burglary, the deputies turn off their lights and siren as they approach the house and park down the street to approach on foot. As the first deputy approaches, he sees a woman standing across the street from the home where the residential burglary was reported. The deputy sees the woman holding a gun in her hand and immediately commands her to drop the weapon. You'll now see video from the in-car video system of the first deputy arriving at the scene. Please note that this video is dashboard camera video accompanied by audio from a microphone worn on the deputy's uniform. The Orange County Sheriff's Department is in the process of implementing a department-wide body-worn camera video system.
Down the door. Get down! Get down! On the floor! On the floor! On the ground! Now! Now! 461 gunpoint. Hands up! Throw that! What do you have on your hands? Put it down! Subject looks like she has a handgun. Let me see your hands! Drop it! Drop it! Drop it! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
As the deputy gives commands to the woman, additional deputies arrive on scene. They also command the woman to drop the weapon, and she turns towards one of them holding the weapon and points it at him. The deputy-involved shooting occurs. The deputies render the scene safe and start life-saving measures. The woman was transported to the hospital, where she was pronounced deceased. During the investigation, it was discovered that the 911 call was placed from the woman's cell phone and that the address she provided to dispatch was not her home. The residents of the home were unharmed, and it was determined that no residential burglary occurred.
Stand down. Put it down. Put the gun down! Ma'am, put the gun down!
Hold your hands up, drop the gun!
Put the gun down!
Put the gun down!
Put the gun down! Force, if you want to kill me, 91 in route. Go.
Someone grab an iPad!
Careful.
Right, secure. I'll get back. Yeah, I got you.
Stop moving! Do not move! Do not move! Yes, come.
Yep.
When a deputy-involved shooting occurs, 3 simultaneous investigations are immediately initiated. The Orange County District Attorney's Office conducts the primary investigation into the actions of the involved deputies to determine whether their actions were within the law. The Orange County Sheriff's Department Homicide Detail investigates the criminal conduct of any potential suspects prior to or during the incident. The third is an internal administrative investigation conducted by the Orange County Sheriff's Department to determine whether the actions of the involved deputies were within policy and consistent with our training, and identify areas where improvement is needed. Additionally, the Office of Independent Review examines the Orange County Sheriff's Department investigations. The Orange County District Attorney's Office and Orange County Sheriff's Department will continue to investigate and analyze this incident to determine whether the actions of the involved deputies were both within the law and department policy. Thank you for taking the time to view this critical incident video.
All right, let's get into it. So the 911
Department
call,
Public Affairs Division.
You want
Spell it.
LOUMO. Yeah, crash.
Okay, did someone come in?
Yes.
That's not unusual. Believe it or not, there's quite a few people who, when real burglaries have occurred, they'll call 911 and act quiet as a mouse. And, you know, before, I used to think, like, why are people trying to be as quiet as a mouse? Like, why aren't they making noise? Like, if they heard that crash, wouldn't they just start yelling, like, get out? You know, the more, you know, that I've learned over the years in the fight, flight, freeze response, I kind of think that these people are sort of going into the flight or freeze kind of mode. And they obviously don't want to be confrontational. They don't want to fight. And so they think if they hide that the boogeyman won't find them. But this happens quite a bit. I mean, it's not like it's rampant or anything, but if you've listened to 911 calls for home invasions and stuff like that, or burglaries, you'll hear actually quite a few people who talk all quiet, and they're hiding. They will go hide, and then they'll talk all quiet. And it's odd to me, because my first thought would be make as much noise as you can, because other than a person breaking into your home and they knowing who you are and they're breaking in for a reason to come in and get at you, that's a different thing. Obviously, yelling at them is not going to deter them, because they're already motivated to come in at you. But for burglars, people who think that no one's home, if you just yell, most burglars are going to run, because they didn't think anyone was there to begin with, or they thought that they could sneak in and be in a part of the house where no one's going to be at and take something and get away without anybody knowing. If you make enough noise, if you yell, "Hey, get out!" they're going to get out. They don't want to go to jail any more than anyone else. They don't want to get caught. So they're going to beat feet and leave a little smoke trail getting the hell out of there. But like domestic incidents and stuff like that, you know, someone purposely knowing, you know, who's here and they have a mission to get in, yelling obviously isn't going to deter them any. They're going to continue doing what they're doing. But for the most part, you know, simple burglaries, if you just yell, "Get out of my house," they're most likely going to be getting out of the house. But these people, I think, they're falling into the flight and freeze stage. And they're not wanting to fight, because yelling will obviously signify to another human aggressor that, hey, there's another human here, and this is some potential for some conflict, some fighting to be had. And some people don't want that. They don't want to do that at all. They'd rather run. And I think that's what people are doing in cases like this. So her being all quiet and everything, that's not unusual. That's not like a, hey, this is a setup kind of thing. That has happened, and it does happen. So, you know, Obviously, the officers are going to respond to this as normal. Of course, there's always that possibility that it's a setup and, it could be a suicide by police thing, or it could just be an ambush wanting to attack the police. That's always a consideration that needs to be taken into account, especially now with all this anti-police bullshit going on. But there's nothing on this that would indicate that this was a setup. Like, it sounded like a legit call. Now, they talk about per their protocol, the officer parks down the street and then approaches on foot. So that's something that probably people don't think about, because most people, they make their comments based off things they know. And for most people, the only things they know about the police are what they've seen in movies or TV shows. And they'll see in the movie the cop car pulling right up to the scene with a license siren on. And then they'll think that in a case like this is what the police would be doing. They run up right into the freaking driveway or pull into the front yard with their license siren on. That's not the case. A lot of agencies, a lot of academies teach to park down the street and approach on foot. It's tactically better that way, especially if it is a scenario where someone is trying to set up an ambush. When you park down the street or out of view of the address, of course, depending on the layout and everything, they're not going to know that you're there. When you pull up, especially at night, you pull up, they're going to see the headlights approaching, they're going to see it turn off, they're going to know, that you're there. Daytime, obviously, daytime you see everything, so marked car pull up right up to the house, they're going to see. Now, daytime officer gets out and approaches on foot, maybe they can see that officer approaching on foot, unless that officer is avoiding the sidewalks and walking through people's yards and kind of hugging the line of the houses to stay out of view. Nighttime, obviously getting on foot, the only time you're going to be visible is if you cross up under a street light, and then you can be fully seen. Other than that, you may just be a shadowy figure approaching. But it's always best to put odds in your favor, and in cases like this, parking a distance away and then approaching on foot is the more tactically sense thing to do. And that's what this officer does. He parks a little bit ways down and approaches on foot. Now he's approaching. You can see that he is checking the addresses of these houses, seeing exactly where it is that he needs to go. And this whole time, this woman's standing over in this area. Now that noise, I don't know what that noise is. That could be a cell phone or a bird. Not sure what that is.
Give me your hands! Down the door! Get down! Get down! On the floor!
He automatically moves behind this vehicle to take a better position of cover so that he's not out in the open.
The floor! Get down! Give me your hands! Down the door! Get down! Get down! On the floor! On the floor! On the ground! No!
He's trying to key up, but you can hear the tone in the background, so he's not getting through. At this point, in my opinion, seeing someone with a gun like that, I think it would be acceptable to hit the button. And the button is the orange button, the emergency button, the oh shit button, man down button, whatever. Depending on how the system is configured, if you hit that orange button, it shuts off it doesn't shut off all of the radios, but it disconnects all other radios, and it gives that radio priority on the net. Like I said, it depends on how the radio people program it and everything, what kind of system you're running. Most modern systems, shrunk systems, digital, whatever, you hit that orange button, all over all other radios take a step back. That orange button gives that radio priority on the system. And so in instances like that, I think it's acceptable to go ahead and just reach down and press that orange button, send the emergency alert tone out, and also, depending on how the system is configured, if it's Motorola, there's a lot of cool options on there, but if the Motorola radio system, you hit the orange button, and if it's programmed to hotkey your mic for a predetermined amount of time, once you press that orange button, you don't have to worry about reaching up to your microphone and start talking in it. You press that orange button, it automatically, A, sends out alert tones, and then B, it hot mics the radio. It automatically turns the microphone on and leaves it on for a preset time. So it could be 10 seconds, it could be 20 seconds, whatever. You can determine how long you want that hot mic to be turned on. And so you press that orange button. Actually, it does more than that. It'll also, in the midst of other people trying to transmit, it'll disconnect the radio. It'll override them. So press it. It overrides all of the radios trying to key up. Sends out the tone on the dispatcher terminal. It fucking lightning bolts flash on the screen, and the little orange stuff starts flashing, and the name pops up. The radio name pops up. All that's good stuff. And then your hot mic turns on. So once you press that orange button, you can just start talking out loud. And the dispatchers and everyone else is going to hear it because your microphone's turned on. And like I said, it's preset. Each agency can, determine how long they want that. Tell the, technicians, hey, turn it on for 8 seconds, turn it on for 10 seconds, whatever. But that allows you to basically have a hands-free moment in a critical stage like this, which is pretty cool. But like I said, it depends on if it's turned on or not. Some agencies, they got all the different features turned on, etc. Some, they don't. So it really depends on the agency and whatnot. But at bare minimum, I do think in this kind of instance, it would be acceptable to reach down and press the oh shit button, because this is an oh shit moment. Like, motherfucker's got a gun. And when you're trying to key up the radio and other people are talking, you can't get out. Well, if your system's set up to where when you press that button, it overrides all other communications and gives you priority on the net, well, that's exactly what you want. You want that priority. You need that priority. The other thing that it looks like what I'm seeing here is the officer does not have a weapon-mounted light. He's having to utilize his flashlight. And the reason why I say that, because it looks like when he goes to try and key up his radio, you don't see the light being directed on her anymore. And that's because one hand's on the gun pointing at her, and the other hand that's holding the flashlight is trying to reach up and manipulate the microphone. This is obviously one of the reasons why weapon-mounted lights are important. First reason being is you can obviously positively identify your target, and it makes it easier for you to shoot your target in low light to no light conditions. The added benefits to it is you no longer have to use a utility light to illuminate that target and then still try to use the hand holding that utility light to do other functions. So if he had a weapon-mounted light, he could have very easily drawn that gun out, got a bead on her, and either put away that utility light or just drop it right there in the middle of the street because it's no longer needed for utility purpose anymore, and keep that weapon-mounted light pointed at her, take his position of cover, and while still holding the gun at her and illuminating her with a light, be able to reach up with his free hand that doesn't have anything in it, key the radio, talk what he needs to talk about, and then go back to a two-handed grip. That's my recommendation, and that's what I train and practice on is the utility light, the patrol light. That when it comes to gun time, that thing has no use for utility purposes anymore. And then some people, well, what happens if your weapon light goes out? And then you just drop your flashlight on the ground. That's fine because I got a backup light. And that backup light is a fighting light only. It's not used for utility purposes. So I have 3 lights on me. One's on my gun. That's obviously for fighting purposes. I have the utility light, patrol light to, look for shit. And then I have my backup fighting light, a Surefire Fury. And that light does not get used for any utility shit. I don't use it to look up under car seats or, look through bushes. Nothing. None of that. Like, it ain't used for shit. It is reserved solely as a backup to my weapon-mounted light in the event it goes down. So, if you set your stuff up like that, then you can get rid of your utility light in a moment's notice. You can drop that damn thing to the ground. It serves no purpose anymore. You're no longer in utility mode, search mode. It is now fight mode. Get rid of that thing. Get it out of your hands. Go to weapon-mounted light. And if something happens to weapon-mounted light, you got your backup fighting light.
Now! Now! 461 gunpoint. Hands up! Throw that! What do you have on your hand? Put it down! Subject looks like she has a handgun. Let me see your hands! Drop it!
And we can't see from this angle very well how she's holding the gun. She could either be walking around with it hands down, or she could have it up and pointed at him. I really don't know.
Drop it! Drop it! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
As the deputy gives command, involved shooting occurs. The hospital in 1-1.
Stand down.
So it's obvious from this angle that she is holding the gun up in a manner in which she could start shooting. At this point, before you ever see this camera angle come into play, that means the other officer is seeing this exact kind of position, and he should have started shooting. The fact that she was holding her gun like that, pointing it at him, that is a deadly force situation. And if her gun was real and she decided to pull that trigger, she could have got a lucky golden BB hit and put a round in that officer's face. That is not a risk that you need to be taking. If someone has a gun and its muzzle is pointed towards you, that's it. That is your line in the sand. There should never, ever be any hesitation. That's fighting right there. That is fight mode. You need to fight for your life. Because all it takes is one squeeze of the trigger and just a lucky roll of the dice, and you have a bullet hitting you in the snot box and turning your lights off forever. That's too much fucking risk. Like, that is a failure to perform duties right there. The fact that we see this car roll in like this and we see that she has this gun pointed out like she does, that other officer failed to reasonably act, not just for his safety, but for the safety of the community. Like, what's behind him? Houses are behind him. If she had a real gun, if she started shooting, bullets could go through the windows of the house and hit innocent people. So not only did he fail to properly protect himself, he failed to protect the rest of the community. He should have delivered deadly physical force to stop the threat, because the threat wasn't just towards him, it was towards the other people. Now, it's all blurry and everything because it looks like on the way to the call, this officer came into contact with some kind of bug. This bug, the last thing probably went through its head was its ass and splattered really good on the windshield. So now the camera is focusing on bug guts instead of what's going on here. But we still get to see enough. And she is pointing this weapon in a threatening manner. She not only points it towards him, but then she rotates and points it towards these officers.
Put the gun down! Ma'am, put the gun down!
Hold your hands up, drop the gun!
Put the gun down!
Put the gun
Put the gun down! Down!
Put the gun down!
Put the gun down! Put the gun down! Put the gun down! Down! Put the gun down! Put the gun down!
So that's about 5 to 6 rounds you hear fired at her before she drops.
Put the gun down! Put the gun down! Put the gun down! Put the gun down! Put the gun down!
Now, out of those, 5 to 7 shots that are fired, not every single one hits her, because you do see a round hit this tree over here and see dust and particle come off of it. So how many times she was initially hit in this first volley, I have no idea. But we do know that 1 or 2 at least misses. But out of those rounds that are fired, we tell that she gets hit because of her change in posture.
Put the gun down! Put the gun down!
Not only does she change her posture, she's still holding the gun, and when it tilts the right way, you can see light reflecting off of it, and then you see her raise it up again at them. So obviously the first rounds that hit her were not immediately incapacitating. She did feel them. Obviously they were causing some kind of pain, but she raised that thing back up. She was fully committed to dying. Like, she had a fighting mindset. She had the wrong kind of fighting mindset, but she had a fighting mindset. Like, those rounds were not immediately physically incapacitating, and she was still able to raise that gun back up to keep them shooting at her.
Put the gun down! Put the gun down!
Finally, that one round was physically incapacitating, and that's what ended up dropping her.
Put the gun down! Put the gun down!
Now, obviously, she didn't have a real gun, but this illustrates why it's sometimes necessary for police to have to fire more than 1 or 2 rounds. Some people get all up in their feelings when facts come out of a case and it's revealed that officers fired 10 rounds or 15 rounds, whatever. The way some people comment and talk, they make it seem as if you fire more than just a couple rounds, it's some type of heinous crime, like it's some type of quote-unquote overkill or excessive force. That's not the case at all. Sometimes the reason why multiple rounds have been fired is because there's multiple officers on scene, such as this. There are multiple officers on this scene. How many are there? I don't know for sure right now. How many rounds total were fired? I'm not really sure about that either. But it's obvious that there are multiple officers on this scene and they are shooting. It is also evident that the first few rounds that hit her were not immediately incapacitating, and she was still in the fight, and she raised her gun back up after being shot. And again, going back to what I said earlier, a lot of people draw upon what they know, and for many people, when it comes to police or even gunfights in general, people's knowledge is based off movies and TV shows. And they think that one shot, one person's going to go down because they see these movies. One person takes one shot from something and it kills them, or it blows them all the way across the fucking room. Whatever. I mean, Hollywood movies are just that. They're movies. It's fake. But that's the only experience people have with gunfights. And you can see this in a lot of people's comments, especially when it comes to stupid shit like, couldn't they have shot him in the leg or shot him in the shoulder? That is pure Hollywood stuff. Like, there is no one who trains for taking a deadly physical weapon and using it in a less lethal capacity by shooting someone in the leg. That does not exist anywhere. If it does, they're fucking crazy. But that's people talking about shit they know nothing about. And they're basing all their bullshit off what they've seen in movies. And so when they see someone get shot multiple times, they think that, oh, in the movies all they had to do was just shoot them once and they blew up. Then they see officers shoot 10 times and they're like, oh, that's excessive. That's murder. No, it's not. You're just fucking stupid and you don't know what you're talking about. Stay in your lane and shut the fuck up. So she takes a few rounds. It does not immediately incapacitate her. She raises the gun. They have to continue shooting to stop the threat. And finally, a round becomes physically incapacitating and it drops her. And she goes down to the ground.
Force, if you want to get 91 and route. Good.
Someone grab an iPad.
Careful.
Right, secure. I'll get that. Yeah, I got this.
Stop moving! Do not move! Do not move! Yeah, top.
Yep.
This looks realistic. There are a lot of people who, if you had shown this to and didn't give them any information about the circumstances of this case, the call, whatever, you show this picture to them, there are a lot of people who would believe that this is a real gun because it looks like a real gun. It looks like a Beretta 92F or an M9 pistol. You don't see any orange coloring or markings on it or anything like that. gun people who would look at this are going to say, this is not a real Beretta. You would see the absence of the Beretta logo on the grips. This stuff right here, these numbers, and then this inscriptions right in here, and then also the magazine floor plate looks a little off. And just this part of the frame and everything on it, like it, as a gun person, I like, even without knowing about this case, if you would have shown me this and I looked at it, I would have been able to, one, scan the picture and be like, all right, well, that's not typical. Like, you don't see this kind of stuff written on the side of the slide like this. I don't recall on a Beretta seeing any kind of numbers like this on there. There's no Beretta logo, and this magazine floor plate does not look legit, doesn't look real. Like, this looks like a fake gun to me. But that's after allowing me a few seconds to analyze this gun. At night, across the street, in the dark, there's no way anyone could ever say, oh, that's a fake gun. It's not real. No way whatsoever. It's impossible. Especially in a dynamic, tense, rapidly evolving situation where the threat or fear of imminent death is possible. There's just no way. At distance, at night, and under these fearful circumstances, there's no way anyone could ever be like, that's not real. No, this looks real. Even at close distance, it would look real. And so those officers responding the way they did, there's nothing wrong with that, because they had a legitimate belief that this was a real gun. It wasn't until the officer kicked the gun out of the way that he was able to say, hey, this is airsoft. Because obviously when if you've kicked a real gun on the ground before and heard the sound that it made, then you know that sound is way different when it's just a hunk of plastic. Plastic being kicked across concrete sounds a lot different than steel being kicked across concrete. They make two totally different kind of sounds. And that was the only way the officer knew it was airsoft, was when he kicked that little toy gun out of the way. Okay, so this is the letter. It's an 11-page letter from the Orange County District Attorney's Office to the sheriff regarding the officer-involved shooting of Sunshine Kamille Salac. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Salac. So the letter is addressed to the sheriff, talks about the overview of the case, investigative methodology, that they looked into it, talks about releasing officer-involved shooting video and audio evidence, and that relevant video audio evidence is available on the district attorney's webpage. And then factual summary. Okay, so under factual summary, Sunshine Kamille Salac is a 28-year-old female who lived in Lake Forest with her father and several other family members. Approximately 4 years ago, Salac was diagnosed with severe depression. She was treated by a psychiatrist and had been prescribed Wellbutrin, Trazodone, and Vistaril at one point. More recently, she had been prescribed Abilify and Lexapro. These are just an off comment. These are a lot of drugs that I recognize these names just from dealing with a lot of different people. And although obviously, medical records and stuff aren't very easily attainable by people, me having dealt with a lot of criminals before, these are like Trazodone. If I ever hear someone talk about Trazodone or Lexapro, stuff like that, that's a clear indication to me this person's got some mental issues going on. And you would be surprised about how many people have mental health issues. Anyway, going back to the article. On May 17, 2020, Salac was admitted to the Saddleback Medical Center for having suicidal thoughts. She was evaluated and transferred to College Hospital, where her prescribed medication was changed to Prozac. She was subsequently discharged the following day. On May 26, 2020, Salac intentionally overdosed by taking approximately 60 pills of Abilify, Lexapro, and Prozac. She was rushed by ambulance to Saddleback Medical Center and stabilized. On May 30, 2020, while still reporting to be suicidal, Salac was placed on a 5150 hold for psychiatric evaluation. She was subsequently discharged from the hospital on June 2nd, 2020. On June 24, 2020 at 1:03 a.m., the Orange County Communication Center received a 911 call from a cell phone number that was subsequently discovered to be that of Salac. During the 911 call, Salac reported that she lived at 22851 Lamont Drive, Lake Forest, and that someone had broken a window to the front of the house and entered the residence. 22851 Lamont Drive is around the corner and approximately 175 yards away from Salac's actual residence. At 1:04 a.m., Deputy Rodrigo Rulis was dispatched to 22851 Lamont Drive regarding a residential burglary in progress. Dispatch advised that the reporting party reported hearing a front window break and believed someone was inside her house. Based on the nature of the call and their relative proximity to the reported location, deputies Jose Arvizo, Matthew Peterson, and Brent Richards elected to respond. Deputies were also advised that the reporting party had stated that she was hiding in the bathroom and her boyfriend was hiding in a closet. While responding, deputies learned that the reporting party's cell had suddenly disconnected and the dispatcher's attempts to reestablish contact with the reporting party were unsuccessful, as attempts to call back went unanswered. At 1:09 a.m., Deputy Arvizo arrived on Lamont Drive and turned his lights off as he turned the corner. He parked 4 houses west of 22851 Lamont Drive. Deputy Arvizo exited his vehicle and walked towards the house using his flashlight. At 1:09 and 58 a.m., as Deputy Arvizo approached a gray sedan parked in the street in front of the house, he heard a noise to his right. He turned toward the noise and saw Salac standing on the south sidewalk under a tree approximately 25 to 30 feet south of his location. Salac was dressed in all black and had the hood of her sweatshirt pulled up over her head. Deputy Arvizo was startled and scared by Salac's sudden appearance. Deputy Arvizo drew his weapon and illuminated Salac with his flashlight. Deputy Arvizo became scared when he saw Salac holding a black handgun in her right hand. Deputy Arvizo immediately drew his handgun, pointed it at Salac, and began to back toward the sedan. He yelled at Salac, "Let me see your hands. Get on the fucking... Get down. Get down. On the fucking floor. On the floor. On the ground now. Now." Salac did not comply with any of his commands. Deputy Arvizo took cover behind the sedan and broadcasted to responding units that he had a suspect at gunpoint. Deputy Peterson noted that Deputy Arvizo seemed fearful in his radio transmission, whereas he is usually pretty calm, cool, and collected on the radio. At 1:10, Deputy Arvizo yelled at Salac, "Hands up, throw that. What do you got in your hands? Put it down." He then broadcasted, "Subject looks like she has a handgun." At 1:10, Salac began to walk across the street toward Deputy Arvizo. As she did, she held the handgun in the high ready position, both hands on the weapon, handgun at shoulder height, and the muzzle pointed upward. At that point, Deputy Arvizo again repeatedly yelled commands to Salac. Let me see your hands. Drop it, drop it, drop it. Drop the fucking gun. Drop the fucking gun. Drop the gun. Drop the gun. Drop the gun. Again, Salac refused to comply. While Deputy Arvizo was yelling these commands, Salac walked toward him at the back of the sedan that he was using for cover. As she did, Deputy Arvizo moved around the side of the sedan toward the front in an attempt to maintain his distance and keep the car between him and Salac. Deputy Arvizo said he was scared, but he did not fire because he had the sedan for cover and he felt like he did not have a good shot. At 1:10, Salac suddenly turned around and began walking back to her original position under the tree. Deputy Arvizo did not fire at Salac as she walked away because the handgun was pointed up and away from him. When Salac reached the sidewalk, she turned around again and faced Deputy Arvizo. Despite numerous orders by Deputy Arvizo to drop the gun, Salac remained non-compliant. At 1:10, Deputies Rulis and Richards arrived and parked on Lumont Drive, approximately 25 to 30 feet northeast of Salac. Salac was facing north toward Deputy Arvizo and was holding the black handgun with both hands in the high ready position. So, just going back to the fact, she's got this gun in her hand and she's walking towards him and he refused to fire. That's unsettling for me. That's unacceptable. There needs to be some retraining done. Like, you don't allow someone with a gun to walk up on you and you not use force against them. That is fucking insane. And I can only imagine that, policies in place and other officers you see in this country using force, and they use appropriate amount of force and they still get fucked by their administration or the legal process. And so there may have been some fear for him to use force, because some officers have been hung out to dry. Some have been treated completely unfairly and using appropriate amount of force. But still, this is a no-brainer right here. She is walking towards him with a gun in her hand. Not just walking towards him, but walks up practically to him, causing him to have to change his position and move away from her. That's unacceptable. For one, her pointing the gun at him should have been fight moment. But then secondly, for sure, without a doubt, her walking towards him, you fight for your life at that point. Anyway, enough of that, or else I'll turn it into a big rant. Deputy Arvizo broadcasted a request that Deputy Rulis and Richards to put their unit spotlights on Salac. Both deputies activated their spotlights in order to illuminate Salac and prevent her from seeing them. Deputy Rulis took cover behind the open driver door of the vehicle, and Deputy Richards took cover on the rear passenger side of Deputy Rulis' vehicle near the trunk. At 1:11, Deputy Peterson arrived and parked 15 to 20 feet west of Deputy Arvizo, who was crouched down in the grass on the north sidewalk, still using the sedan for cover. Deputy Peterson also illuminated Salac with his unit spotlights. Salac was still standing on the south sidewalk, east of a tree facing Deputy Arvizo. She was still holding the black handgun with both hands in the high ready position. I wouldn't necessarily call that a high ready position, in my opinion. When you look at it, the gun is practically pointed at the officer behind the car. And then when she turns towards them, it is almost eye level. It is not pointed at the ground in any way in what would be a high ready position. She is in a shooting position, albeit a screwed up looking shooting position, but she is in a shooting position. At 1:11, Deputy Peterson ran from his unit to Deputy Arvizo's location. Deputy Arvizo asked if anyone had a rifle. Deputy Peterson told Arvizo that he did, but it was in his unit. Deputy Arvizo told Deputy Peterson that he would cover him while he ran back to his unit to retrieve his rifle. Deputy Peterson spoke of having no cover and feeling exposed once he left the cover of the sedan. He felt it was imperative that Deputy Arvizo covered him in the event Salac decided to shoot at him. As Deputy Peterson retrieved his rifle, Salac began to move her head side to side and appeared to be looking at each deputy's position. At 111, Deputies Rulis and Richards yelled at Salac, "Put the gun down, put your hands up and drop the gun." But Salac again would not comply with any commands. Meanwhile, Deputy Arvizo broadcasted the request over the radio for a canine unit. So these officers responding to this call, initially it's a burglary in progress. And with that being said, they should have had rifles out to begin with. And this is normally a huge rant of mine, a usual rant of mine when it comes to some of these officer-involved shootings. A burglary means that, for one, the victims of a burglary, they automatically already have the right to use deadly physical force to protect themselves. Because you just don't know what a burglar is going to have, what their intentions are, etc. For officers responding, same thing. They have not the same thing as they have the ability to use deadly physical force just because they're a burglar, but the same mindset. They have no idea what they're going to have. And you have no idea what's in this house that they can get their hands on. These people could have guns in their house, and this burglar gets a hold of it. This burglar could have a gun of their own and decide to start shooting and trying to fight their way out instead of being caught. This would be one of those things where it is acceptable and should be recommended that if you respond to a burglary call, you need to have your rifle out, because that means that you could potentially get involved in a gunfight with someone who doesn't want to go to jail. And rifles stop fights a lot better. When this officer called out on the radio that there was a person with a gun, the other officers responding, as they got there, they should have got their rifles out, but they didn't. And especially the one who ended up going back to get his rifle. He showed up after the other ones were on scene. He had the opportunity and the time, in my opinion, to be able to go ahead and get that rifle out and try and put it into play. But instead, he had to go back to his vehicle while being exposed in doing so. A totally unnecessary risk. If you know you're going to a gunfight, bring a rifle. Rifles stop fights a lot better. At 111, Salac looked east towards Deputy Rulis, then suddenly turned her body in his direction and widened her stance by taking 2 steps, while simultaneously dropping her hands and extended her arms out away from her body. Deputy Rulis repeatedly ordered her to put the gun down. By 111, she was pointing the handgun directly at Deputy Rulis, and Deputy Richards yelled, "Don't do it." Deputy Rulis again yelled, "Put the gun down." Again, that's fight moment right there. She has actively pointed this gun at you and is taking what appears to be a possible shooting stance, preparing to shoot. There's no talking at this point. She's made her decision. With Salac still pointing the handgun at Deputy Rulis, a volley of rounds were fired by the other 3 deputies. For a brief moment, Salac bent forward slightly at the waist and allowed her arms to fall forward toward the ground. However, she quickly raised the handgun back up with her right hand and pointed it directly toward Deputy Rulis again. Deputies continued firing at Salac, and she fell to the ground and dropped the gun at 111. A combined 10 shots were fired by the 3 deputies within approximately 4 seconds. Deputy Arvizo stated that when Salac pointed the handgun toward Deputy Rulis and Richards, "I was concerned for my partner's safety and lives, and I fired 3 shots. He later added that he was in fear for Deputy Rulis and Richards' life and safety. He also noted that a handgun from Salac's distance would absolutely be lethal. Deputy Richards said when Salac took a firing stance and pointed the gun in his direction, He felt an adrenaline rush and an immediate fear for his life. He fired 5 rounds and stopped firing when Salac fell to the ground and dropped the gun. Deputy Richards later described that he stopped firing when he felt like she was no longer a threat. Deputy Peterson said that he had just retrieved his rifle from his trunk and was running toward the front driver's side of his police unit when he heard a shot. He did not see who fired the shot, but he was fearful that his partners were about to get shot or had been shot. Deputy Peterson looked towards Salac and saw she was pointing her handgun at deputies. He believed Salac had fired at his partners. Deputy Peterson raised his rifle and fired 1 round, which struck the tree next to Salac. Deputy Peterson saw Salac was still pointing the handgun toward his partners, and therefore the threat was still ongoing at that point. Deputy Peterson felt he had to stop the threat, so he fired a 2nd round. After he fired that round, Salac fell to the ground and dropped the handgun. So, this is what I talk about rifles stopping fights a lot better than pistols. And we'll go back and replay this.
Put the gun down!
So all these are pistol hits. That plume of dust and wood particle you see coming from the tree is the rifle round. The minute she goes down is when that rifle round hits her. Rifles are good fight stoppers. There are not that many people who can continue to stand up after being hit with a rifle. Lots of people can still stand and move and do stuff after being hit with pistols. That's why I always say, if you know you're going to a gunfight or the possibility of a gunfight exists, bring a rifle and bring your friends with rifles. Deputy Rulis saw Salac point the handgun at him and instantly believed she's possibly going to shoot me, and that his life was in danger. Deputy Rulis explained that he did not fire because when Salac lowered the handgun and pointed at him, he was in the process of giving her commands and he therefore did not have his gun sights trained on her. Deputy Rulis stated that because of the position he was in, he wasn't going to just blindly start shooting without first making sure he had a good, clean shot. At 1:11, Deputy Rulis requested paramedics. Deputies Richards and Rulis approached Salac, and Deputy Rulis kicked the handgun away from her reach. Upon kicking the handgun, Deputy Rulis immediately realized it didn't feel like a real gun. Deputy Peterson also stated that when Deputy Rulis kicked it away, it sounded like plastic, but at the same time, I realized the gun is straight exactly what I saw, a black-looking gun that kind of looked like a Beretta. Deputies assessed Salac's condition and determined she had sustained multiple gunshot wounds to the upper torso. Deputy Richards, along with several other deputies, rendered aid to Salac until paramedics arrived. At 1:14, Deputy Arvizo made contact with one of the residents in the house who informed Deputy Arvizo that they had not called 911. He and his family had been asleep at the time of the 911 call, and no one from the residence had reported a break-in. Another deputy later showed the resident the phone number that had called 911, and the resident confirmed that it did not belong to anyone in the house. Shortly after, another deputy called the phone number from which the 911 call originated, and the cell phone found in Salac's possession immediately began to illuminate and vibrate. At 1:19, Orange County Fire Authority Engine 19 arrived. Firefighter paramedics saw several sheriff deputies rendering aid to Salac and immediately contacted the hospital base station and expedited the ambulance response. Salac had a pulse, but her breathing was labored. At 1:27, care ambulance departed the scene and transported Salac to Mission Hospital. While on transport, paramedics established an IO line in Salac's left tibia and administered 250 milliliters of saline and also applied dressings to her gunshot wounds. At 2 a.m., the ambulance arrived at Mission Hospital and released patient care to Mission Hospital medical personnel. The attending trauma surgeon and his team immediately began to treat Salac. Salac arrived in cardiac arrest with no pulse and no blood pressure, and her pupils were fixed and dilated. She was intubated, and an emergency thoracotomy was performed, allowing medical personnel to manually massage her heart. Once Salac's heart began to beat, the attending surgeon saw that she had sustained a major injury to an artery in the upper left chest, resulting in massive blood loss. The medical staff followed advanced life-saving protocols for over 30 minutes but was unable to save Salac. The attending physician pronounced Salac deceased at approximately 2:36 a.m. Salac's boyfriend, John Doe, had stayed the night at Salac's house the night of the shooting. He woke up between 3 a.m. to discover that Salac was gone. He looked at his phone and saw that she had sent him a text at 1:09 that said, "I love you." Because Salac suffered from severe depression and had recently attempted suicide, John Doe became concerned. He woke up Salac's father and told him she was missing. They searched the house and yard but could not find her. They then initiated a search of the surrounding neighborhood. During their neighborhood search, John Doe turned on Lumont Drive and saw yellow police tape and several sheriff units. He immediately feared the worst and reported his findings to Salac family. Due to her recent suicide attempt, Salac's father said that when his daughter's boyfriend woke him up and told him his daughter was gone, he immediately feared for her safety. Both Salac's father and John Doe later verified Salac's cell phone number, which matched the number used to make the original 911 call. Salac's father also confirmed they kept a realistic-looking replica Beretta handgun at their house. Video footage from the deputies' patrol vehicles captured part of the interactions between the deputies and Salac and corroborated the statements made by the deputies. Evidence collected. The following items of evidence were collected from the scene: 2.23 Spear cartridges cases, 3 .40 caliber casings, 5 .40 caliber casings, 1 black power line by Daisy 340 BB spring repeater pistol, 1 black and white shirt with apparent blood, 1 black hooded sweatshirt with apparent blood, 1 California driver's license number F5479601, 1 phone unknown make or brand with black and white case, 1 BCM rifle model BCM-4. Autopsy. July 2nd, 2020. Independent forensic pathologist Dr. Scott Luzzi conducted an autopsy on the body on Sunshine Kamille Salac. Dr. Luzzi noted that 1 gunshot wound to the torso had entered at the left shoulder, had followed a path striking the left lung, left clavicle, and left subclavian artery, and exited over the left clavicle. Salac also sustained I don't know how to pronounce this, tangential gunshot wound to the chin, a superficial perforating gunshot wound to the lower jaw, a gunshot wound to the abdomen, as well as a gunshot wound to each arm. The cause of death was determined to be a gunshot wound to the torso, and the manner was determined to be homicide. So, it doesn't... Well, let me read further. Evidence analysis. Deputy Arvizo's Glock 40 caliber semi-auto handgun was test fired at the crime lab. There was 1 cartridge head stamped Federal 40 Smith & Wesson in the chamber, and 12 in cartridge head stamped Federal 40 Smith & Wesson seated in the 15 cartridge capacity. Deputy Peterson's BCM rifle was test fired without malfunction. Rifle had a 30-round magazine capacity inserted into the magazine well. Magazine had 22 .223 rounds, head stamped Spear 17 .223 rim. There was a live round in the chamber with the same head stamp. After the incident, the weapon was secured in the rear remarked unit at the scene. That weapon was processed, photographed, and collected as part of the investigation. Richard's Glock 40 cal, same thing. Toxicology. So going back to the gun stuff, so it doesn't specify which of these gunshots hit her or where at. But I think that obviously the one that entered in through the left side went all the way through and hit the left, subclavian artery and exited over the left clavicle. I mean, I would say that's possibly the rifle round that dumped her down. But it's not for sure. But I would suspect that was the rifle round that caused all that damage. The other gunshot wound she got a gunshot wound to the chin, a superficial perforating gunshot wound to the lower jaw, a gunshot wound to the abdomen, and a gunshot wound to each arm. So, I mean, she was shot in the face. And even after being shot in the face by them and shot in the arms and stuff, I mean, she was still committed to raising that gun up and staying in the fight. Like, that pain of being shot did not deter her. It did not stop her whatsoever. Like I said, she had a fighting mindset. She just, unfortunately, had the wrong kind of reasoning for that fighting mindset. But this goes back into incapacitating rounds. What if she was armed with a real gun and decided to shoot it out with the police? She was going to stay in the fight, even after taking hits. That happens, especially with pistol caliber ammunition. And the whole reason why police in this nation went to .40 caliber guns is because of an incident in Miami, Florida, where the FBI got into a shootout with a couple bank robbers, and they were shot multiple times by the FBI and still lived. One of them got shot in the head during the beginning of this gunfight and was temporarily knocked out. He later woke back up and crawled out of his car and got into the car of an FBI agent to try and make a getaway. His partner was shot through the side of the chest, and that round went and landed within his heart area. It was eventually going to kill him, but it just didn't kill him right there. And then got shot multiple more times. And the FBI said, these weak 9mm 38 rounds. We got to get a bigger round. So they went to 10mm, found out 10mm was way too big for little small-handed females working in the agency and little beta males. And they couldn't control the recoil and all that, and so they started putting less powder in some of them. And Smith & Wesson said, well, if you got this big old 10mm cartridge and this big old casing, and you're only putting this much lead in there, there's all this space in there, we'll just make this 40 cal. And basically a 40 cal is just a shortened down 10mm auto. That's all it is. And interestingly enough, FBI has kind of reversed that within the last few years and is going back to 9mm. Funny how those things going full circle. But anyway, shot multiple times with handgun, shot in the face with a handgun, and she's still in the fight. And the rifle, like I said, I'm pretty confident that rifle is the one that caused that devastating damage to the subclavian artery and all that. But it doesn't really define that in the autopsy, but pretty confident that rifle round is the one that dropped her. And especially from the testimony of the officer who fired the rifle, who said that after he fired that second round into her, that she dumped down to the ground. So, rifle cartridges, they stop fights pretty effectively. They're way better than pistols. Toxicology examination. A sample of Salac's blood was collected. So, they detected some stuff in there. They got ethanol, trazodone, nicotine, hydroxyzine, bupropion, metabolites, bupropion, 1-3- chlorophenol, piperazine, And then the same thing, except it's just 1-4 chlorophenyl piperazine, whatever the hell that is. Salac had no prior criminal history. Talks about standard legal principles in officer-involved shooting cases. Just goes through and lists some California penal codes and some of their Supreme Court rulings. And of course, it's pretty lengthy, so I'm not going to go over that. Also talks about the U.S. Supreme Court case of Graham versus Connor. Blah, blah, blah. Legal analysis. The facts in this case are determined by considering the statements of Deputy Arvizo, Peterson, Richards in the investigations, which were supplemented by other relevant material, especially the video recording of the interactions between Salac and the deputies. The issue in this case, whether the conduct of Deputy Arvizo, Peterson, and Richards on June 24, 2020 was criminally culpable and without justification. As stated above, in order to charge Deputies Arvizo, Peterson, and Richards with a criminal violation, it is required that the prosecution be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that no legal justification existed for deputies' conduct. Therefore, in order to lawfully charge them with a crime, the prosecution must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they did not act in lawful self-defense or defense of others. If the actions of the deputies were necessary and justifiable as lawful self-defense and defense of others, then criminal charges will not be warranted. As the Court of Appeal held, it is well settled that unlike private citizens, police officers act under color of law to protect the public interest. They are charged with acting affirmatively and using force as part of their duties because the right to make an arrest or investigative stop necessarily carries with it the right to use some degree of physical coercion or threat thereof to effectuate it. Police officers, in short, not similarly situated to the ordinary battery defendant and need not be treated the same. In these cases, then, the police officer is in the exercise of the privilege of protecting the public peace and order, and he is entitled to the even greater use of force that might be in the same circumstances required for self-defense. Brown versus Ranswaller, 2009. Boom. Goes on, talks about more legal stuff. Goes again to summarize the situation of them getting there, her having a gun, refusing to drop it, blah, blah, blah. Conclusion. Based upon a review of all the evidence provided to and obtained by the OCDA and based on the entirety of the facts contained in all available reports and interviews reviewed and pursuant to the applicable legal principles, it is our legal opinion that there a lack of evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt any criminal culpability on the part of the deputies, and there is substantial evidence that their actions were reasonable and legally justified under the circumstances when they shot Salac on June 24, 2020. Salac's death was tragic, but it was not the result of any criminal conduct by any of the involved deputies. Accordingly, the OCDA is closing its inquiry into this incident. So, that came out January 21 of 2021. All right. Not much else to say about this video. I could go into more medical stuff, but I'm not going to. Yeah, that's about it. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.